here's Brody Brazil.
Those of you who are regular viewers of this YouTube channel are saying right now, wait a second, Brazil, you've already done this video. Utah, $900 million of public funding to go to a sports venue. Yeah, that's true. That was yesterday's video for Major League Baseball. Today's video is also about Utah. It's a different $900 million, and this one is most likely to help keep the Jazz in Salt Lake, but also the potential of luring in the National Hockey League to the state of Utah. I know, 900 plus 900, that's almost $2 billion. Let's square everything away here from the very beginning. Within the last 2 days alone, Utah has committed $1.8 billion worth of public money. The first 900, which I made the video about yesterday, going to a Major League Baseball stadium at the Power District. That's part of the Larry H. Miller Group's investment of, I think, almost $4 billion into that region. That was House Bill 562, which passed in the House and in the Senate and is going to the governor's desk for signature. That creates a sales tax district on about the 100-acre site. This is new tax money that currently is not being generated right now. It also adds in the state of Utah a 1.5% tax on rental cars, but only to tourists and only if the Major League Baseball team actually does come to Utah. Now, they're aiming for expansion, but why wouldn't they take any team that might want to relocate at the same conversation? So that's one thing. There's a whole other video on that literally from yesterday, so go check that out if you want. But this video is about Senate Bill 272, which is $900 million for an NHL or NBA arena, and it's actually for a new arena or to fix up the Delta Center, which opened in 1991. I'll explain that in just a second. But this is Senate Bill 272, which also adds a new tax, a new district sales tax in the region which is yet undefined, somewhere in downtown Salt Lake City. But they're adding a 0.5% sales tax to help pay off this $900 million, and it's going to last somewhere less than 30 years. But again, all of this to understand, look how serious Utah is about trying to get more professional sports. They've had the Jazz for quite some time, several decades, and now it seems like they're really anxious to add the National Hockey League and Major League Baseball. Oh, by the way, they're also getting the Olympics next decade, which will also factor into our conversation here. Okay, Senate Bill 272. This is the one for the indoor arena. It was passed by the Senate 24-7. No, not 24-7, but 24 yes to 7 no. And it was also passed by the House to a 50-20 vote. Now, I should let you know it is going back to the Senate due to some amendments that were made by the House, so then the Senate has to reconfirm it. And then it's going to the desk of Governor Spencer J. Cox to be signed. Governor Cox has about a month, I think, to put his signature on it. As soon as he does, it's official. And again, this raises taxes in a defined zone. I'm still not sure what that zone is, in downtown Salt Lake City by 0.5% for no more than 30 years. So you can probably expect that sales tax to go up 0.5% for the entity or for the total duration of 30 years. Now, this bill is interesting because it doesn't necessarily say we're going to build a new arena. It also doesn't necessarily say that we're just going to fix up the Delta Center, which opened in, the early 90s, 1991. This bill allows for bonding of up to $900 million for either building or remodeling an indoor NBA and NHL venue. And so the Jazz are in town, and maybe they were seeking a new building with the Smith Group, and that's obviously who's a part of this investment. And it's that same Smith Group who's trying to lure the NHL. I'll have that for you in just a second. Salt Lake City is hosting the 2034 Winter Olympics. Time for a quick edit here. I just want to say that Salt Lake City has the bid in for the 2034 Olympics. They're seen as favorites. So obviously they want to do everything possible to try and secure that bid. That's why they want to add another venue to say, hey, look, we're ready. Look at what we're doing here. So all this money stuff being approved not only goes to professional sports teams year after year, but also this probably makes a statement towards the Olympic bid. Okay, back to the video. But all of this would create a downtown sports and entertainment zone of up to 50 acres. You'd have to imagine that's where the tax would be applied. Okay, I mentioned Ryan Smith. Let's go back to the end of January. That's when we first got kind of word and understanding that he, owner of the Jazz, he and his family who own the Jazz, that they were also very interested in getting an NHL team. They formally requested to the NHL to initiate the expansion process to Salt Lake City. Now, what does that even mean? Is there like a little button? Usually it has a cover over it. You push the button and that initiates the expansion process. You'd have to think there's a committee, there's some research being done. It's a formal request of the NHL to maybe add another team. Or, in this case, and I hate to speculate, you have a couple teams out there right now, one specifically the Arizona Coyotes, who are kind of in limbo. Granted, they're working on a 100-acre site down in Scottsdale. I hope it works out. But this is also out there, and we'll talk about expansion in just a second too. But this is the part that makes it interesting. Ryan Smith and his group say, you know what, Delta Center, although it does need some upgrades, we want to fix it, we're ready to begin NHL play next season in our venue. And yeah, he's also had the promise that this will not be the permanent home. They're trying to build, and now they've got the money passed with this new bill, they're trying to build a new arena specifically for the NHL. And discussions about the NHL to Salt Lake City, they've been going on for a long time. This is nothing new, but they've never gone this fast and got this far until the Smith Group, owners of the Jazz. So the NHL, look, they're part of this. The Smith Group is not one-sided messaging towards the NHL. The NHL had this coordinated response saying, quote, the NHL appreciates the interest expressed by Smith Entertainment Group to bring NHL hockey to Utah. During conversations over the course of the past 2 years, we've been impressed by Ryan and Ashley Smith's commitment to their community and their passion and vision for Utah, not only as a hockey market, but as a preeminent sports and entertainment destination. Utah is a promising market, and we look forward to continuing our discussions. Side note here, as much as this video is about the bill being passed and another $900 million of public funding, it should also be asked of the NHL, do you really want to expand again? Right now? You just got to 32 teams. 6 or 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 7, I guess, you added the Golden Knights, right? So that was 31. And then you sat that way for a few years with an odd number of teams. You were a little bit imbalanced. And then you brought in the Seattle Kraken. Now you're at 32 teams. You've got 2 conferences. You've got 4 divisions. It's perfect. 8, 8, 8, and 8. Do you really want to get to 34 teams? Do you really want to get to 36 teams? The NHL at 32 is already kind of at the top end of pro sports leagues in North America. Does it create a better product? Is there room for that many more players? Does it change the dynamics of things? What about the struggling franchises? I've got a whole video on how Winnipeg is, as a business, is not doing so well. The Coyotes are playing in a 4,600 seat venue down in Tempe right now with no permanent solution on the horizon yet. So again, as much as the Smith Group is out there and trying to bring in the NHL, like, is the NHL actually ready for expansion versus something else? And I know Atlanta's been mentioned and Houston's been mentioned for expansion. And there are some other cities out there that could take on an NHL team. But do you really want to do that right here, right now as a business? And look, that's not to disrespect hockey in Salt Lake City. I think they are a front-runner market at this point. They hosted the 2002 Olympics. Obviously, NHL players participated in those winter games. That doesn't get to happen every go-around of every 4 years. The Delta Center has hosted preseason games. In fact, it's the Frozen Fury, right? They invite 4 teams, play 2 games. That's pretty cool. So they've been ramping up into trying to get the NHL. They had a previous IHL team. They've got a current ECHL team, the affiliate of the Colorado Avalanche. And yeah, they've got that bid to host the 2034 Winter Olympics going on. I just think overall, when you look at Salt Lake City, it has to be seen as a front-runner market for a lot of different things right now. They've got the approvals, they've got the money in place, they've got the influence. It just seems like they're well-positioned to move forward with pro sports. Here are my takeaways of all of this. Now, we haven't talked about the Utah Jazz barely at all in this video because it's not really about them, but at some point, they are probably also seeking either another renovation to the Delta Center, or they're seeking to move into also this brand new hockey/basketball arena. So we don't really know yet. That part is not figured out. But this bill is laid out so that the $900 million could be bonded. It could go either way. It could go a little bit here, a little bit there. But in one way or the other, $900 million towards a new arena or fixing up the old one, it's going to help keep the Jazz downtown in Salt Lake City somewhere. And again, I also think This is a statement to the NHL. It puts Salt Lake as a frontrunner to add some kind of team in some capacity somewhere down the road. I just mentioned it helps the Olympic efforts. Hey, look at us for our bid. We've got another brand new venue and facility. We don't need to worry about that. A 30-year tax hike to do this indoor arena. It's interesting, right? And usually the public is not very fond of these things. I can't speak for anybody that lives in Salt Lake City. Maybe they're for it. Maybe there's a lot against it. But usually these things are not favorable to raise taxes to have public money go to things like this. Usually you try and build in like the tax district. There does seem to be a difference, right, between the baseball stadium's $900 million and the indoor arena's $900 million. Hey, if you're making tourists pay for it and you're making the sales tax district pay for itself, okay, then fine. It's kind of doing its own thing. But in this case, the general public is having their sales tax go up by 0.5% for about 30 years. And all of this, again, it blows my mind, a $2 billion public commitment to sports venues in the state of Utah. That's a lot in this day and age. It's not how every region does it, but it's what they're serious about in Utah. And there is that image, by the way, that Ryan Smith posted just on Twitter. It kind of came out of nowhere. Nobody necessarily expected it. And I don't think this is by any means a full-fledged like architectural rendering. This is just somebody's concept. I just don't even think everything's in proportion, the angle of the building. You know what I'm saying? Somebody spent time on this, but it's not by any means an actual real thing. We don't even know the location of this. It's very vague. But this is what they're aiming to do. Probably give the Jazz a new home, probably make a venue that's also new and suitable for the NHL. You made it here to the end of another Utah sports video. So thumbs up on that down below. That'll help me in this channel. And also, if you're new here, if you're just stopping by, you've never seen me before, I really appreciate you finding me. So thank you for that. But before you go, make sure you subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time.